This show is about sharing the profound stories of others who've turned their lemons to lemonade, and about how you can navigate your own struggles by understanding how others have navigated theirs. As I continue to search for my own truth, I will share the incredible stories of the people that cross my path, with the hope that you find inspiration, courage, and peace along your own journey to make the best lemonade your life has to offer. This is Life and Lemonade. On this episode of Life and Lemonade TV, we sit with my Bajan sister, Jolene Nunez, to discuss the unconventional choice of downsizing her city life to making a home with her partner in a van. Her story, along with her strong identity, authenticity, and the decision to always choose self, are inspiring reminders to push past the walls we build to pursue the lives we want. I want to start where you are at now, right? Which is, what is van life?
Van life is living in a van. So you're living in a mobile home, a mobile existence, and you're on the go. So everything that you would do in a house, you would be doing in a van. So all the necessities that you need are there for you as well. The way that you would live your life, it's the same thing. Now granted, there's a process and a science behind it in regards to like how to use the bathroom. That's a common question. Or how do you shower, or what do you do when you need service? So all of these things, like there's a way to do it, but it's the same thing as living in a house. It's the exact same thing. And you get to go everywhere. You reverse your car and your house is behind you. Where you live is behind you, and that's a beautiful thing. It's with you on wheels.
Right. And so I think I was introduced to van life, to be very honest, when I moved to California, because as you move around here, you see a lot of people living in RVs, which are like the extended homes.
Right.
And I realized that it was a community of people. But before I moved here, I was not aware that van life was an actual culture and a way of living, right? So why van life? For people that, from other places that would never have experienced it before, why?
Why van life? Naturally, by nature, I am a gypsy at heart in regards to being a free spirit.
Right.
I come from a background of traveling a lot from when I was born up to high school or secondary school in Barbados.
Right.
My mother is, before I came around, she traveled her whole life as well, and she's a single parent, so everything, we're very close, we still are. And so I kind of took that and brought it into my life.
Right.
It is natural for me to travel the world. It's natural for me to see so many beautiful things. There's so many beautiful things to see and cultures and places to go. So instead of paying for a vacation and saving up for a vacation, why not do that on wheels and have my home with me? So I really studied this. I thought about it in depth. I thought about going to Africa and touring there and so forth, and taking it from there and finishing the rest of the world slowly. But I decided I can see so much with my home on wheels, so why not start there and be the gypsy that I am, and continue to be the Jo that I am, the Jolene that I've always been.
Right.
So that's the why. The why is in my bloodstream. It's in my spirit. It is freedom for me to live in a van and go.
Right.
And I'm a minimalist. I don't need a lot. I wasn't always this way. So it took a lot of time for me to get here, especially being in New York and being a model and so forth. But I let all the material, I let it go. It's not worth it.
Right.
It's not coming with me when I leave this planet. So why am I holding on to it now?
And I want to get into that in a very deep way as we move forward. I want to get into who you are as a person and what you do, and just your mindset. Before we get there, I want to stay on the culture of van life a little bit, and I want to inform but also demystify a couple of things. So van culture, tell me about it. Like choosing to live in a van and transition, what does that entail? because I know based on our conversations that it's not just a decision to I'm just going to move everything I have and move into my van. That is not an efficient way of doing van life.
No, it's a way, but not efficient.
Right,
for sure.
Exactly. So break down that transition and that process.
Okay.
For us.
Yeah. So the first thing that you would need to do is let go of the material things, which is what I was just saying, because it's not all going to fit with you, and if you want it all to come with you, it's only going to bombard your mind, and that's the last thing that you want to do. The idea, exactly. Yeah. You want to have the least amount of things with you, so you have that space to intake all the beauty as you travel in van life. So financially as well, it helps. So definitely getting rid of all the nonsense and the material things that you don't need, that we all collect because we love to consume. We live in a consumerism world, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is you really need to budget. You need to understand and understand what it means to be in BLM land. So the Bureau Land Management are places where you can camp for free for 2 weeks at a time. You have Walmarts, you have casinos. No one would know these things. If you do your research, you can save a lot of money, because these are all places that you can camp for free. Understanding what type of van you want. A lot of people go for Mercedes Sprinter vans, which are the Amazon delivery vans, is what I compare them to, so people understand what I mean. And then what we're in is a Dodge B250, and that's essentially like a bigger than a Jeep, but picture the silhouette of a Jeep as opposed to a van. It is not an RV either, but there's the RV option, which is less of van life living and RV living. That's a whole other category. The beautiful thing about van life, a lot of people will gut the van and then they'll convert them themselves and get more creative, whereas RV is very old school. It goes a lot more like way back. Van life is more modern and more millennial as well. RVs are more for the retirees, and now granted there are millennials that do it as well, but the van life aspect of it really gets the mind going, because you have to think more, and also you can do what you want to make it your home. It's like renovating a house. So those are the I guess the pros and just the facts of what the major facts and pros of what van life is all about, as opposed to RV living. So and you guys can see pretty much everything. So give us like a small quick tour of what we have. Yeah, sure. So these are the two front seats. It's like a regular front of any vehicle. So you have your passengers and your driver's seat. We chose to get an ottoman to put in between the two seats so that we can get our chargers, we can get our water, we can get coins for laundry, for the tolls for driving and so forth. And then you have your kitchenette here, and we have our beautiful plants, and Leah brought an addition. Thank you, gratitude. And so that's a full kitchen. So you have your sink. And then one thing that is very important in van life is the whole water situation. It's not a regular kitchen at home. It's not a regular plumbing. The science is very different. So you have water tanks. You have a gray tank and you have a regular fresh water. And so that's connected to, there's a snake, like a hole, like a pipe that's connected from the faucet all the way down to the top of the tank. So we decided to get 3 tanks. So we have the shower, then we have fresh water for brushing our teeth and washing our face and doing dishes, because we cook as well. And then all of that water goes to the gray tank, which is the waste and all of the old water that we use already. And then we have storage. We personally had a fridge, but we took out the fridge. We have a cooler underneath until we get the fridge that we want. And then we have like containers to put our non-perishable items in, and spices and all of that. So that's the kitchen. And then you have the bed. So these are 2 futons that Leah and I are sitting on. You simply pull them into a queen size bed.
Okay.
Underneath we have, again, we did a lot of renovating. So again, that's van life. So this did not all come like this. So we have our storage units underneath here, our shelves, but underneath.
And I'll show you guys as well.
Yeah. And so a lot of things are stored underneath there, and the same thing with up top here and here as well. Straight ahead is our library, so we have all of our books up there. And believe it or not, our shower is underneath here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by that because I know who you see in the background here, he was showing me hi.
What's going on, everyone?
he was telling me how they showered this morning, so we can do all of that after. But so yes, a daily schedule, because as you mentioned before, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. So you actually, based on just my conversations with Jolene, I realized that there is a lot of organization, like way more organization than your average day in a, your routine day at home. You guys have to plan every minute, day to day. Each day might look different. So just give me like a general idea of your daily schedule and the things that you have to consider in a day.
Okay, so lately our BLM land that we've been staying at, so the Bureau of Land Management, has been in the mountains, so there's no service there. Now, if there's no service, then obviously we can't get through to people. If we don't have things that are charged, then we can't use our technology either. We have solar panels for energy. So we always have to make sure that what we're doing, if we're staying in the mountains especially, rather than coming down into town to get service, we charge our solar panels, which we either put up top of the roof because that's where the most sun is, or we just put it where we put it on the floor facing the sun. So we have our goal zero, that's what we use. So we have to make sure that everything is charged before we go into town if we do need service, if we have a lot of work to do and so forth. Now, we wake up in the morning and let me start in the night before. So we get into the mountain and we, around 6 o'clock
in the evening.
And the way that we start our day is we actually shower in the night.
Okay.
Because again, you have limited water. You have to continue to go to the supermarket, Whole Foods. You can fill your tanks for like cents or how much is it, babe? 39 cents. To fill your water tanks, guys, if you're interested in that. So Whole Foods is great for that. So we have to be, or Walmart as well. So we have to be cautious of the water that we're using when you see our shower, which I love our shower so much. It's fantastic. But anyway, so when you see our shower, we decided to get a vase because we can track how much water we're using. Okay. So I shower first in the vase, and then I'll rinse it out, and then Om will shower after, or whatever. Like one of us will shower before the other. It's literally about a few seconds to shower. We tuck it back in underneath here, and we get ready for the day. We use our kitchenette to wash our teeth and brush our teeth, and wash our face and so forth. And we have shower wipes as well. So if we can't shower and we're stuck, there are actual shower wipes as well that exist. They say shower wipes instead of baby wipes or whatever, facial wipes. They're shower wipes. So they're little like towelettes, and they're thick, so we can use that as well. We get ready for the day, and then we do our morning routines and exercises and so forth. And while we're doing that, we'll charge our solar panels. So this is about 2 to 3 hours in the morning. So we're still in the mountains.
And you wake up generally at like what time?
I wake up very early, around 5:30. Around like when the sun he rises with the sun, to do his spiritual practice, and it's been a lot easier on the West Coast to do that because the sun is just more clear here, and sunrise is more clear here. So it's like 3 hours in the mountain before we go into town. So that's the gist of the morning routine.
And then throughout the day you do your work and and all that stuff, but then you have to prep for where you will go if you're not in the mountain, for where you will go to stay. So you have to look for another BLM space, or do you park in residential areas? I've seen people do that before.
Which is called stealth parking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the BLM land, you're allowed to stay there 2 weeks at a time. So luckily you have a good 2 weeks to figure out the next move. This is a perfect example. The mountain that we were staying at, with all the California fires that are going on right now, they closed it. So the other night, actually, to answer your question, this is actually a perfect example. So we ended up stealth camping because it got really late. We didn't want to drive in the night. Right. And we had gotten to the mountain like right before it started to get dark. And we turned around when we saw the sign. So as soon as because we didn't have service up there. So as soon as we had service, we got off of the road, and then we just GPS like park nearby.
Right. And
usually by the park is a residential area in California.
Right.
So we just parked on the side instead of by the park. We parked in the residential, in the actual driveway of where the houses are, and just parked on the side.
Okay. So you have to consider where you can park. You have to consider your solar paneling so that you can charge. Areas to refill your water, and you can help me here. Gas, I know you have all these different apps where you can like figure out gas. What else am I missing? What else would you want them to know that you figured they would not know about prepping a day?
The water is a big one because we tend to not be cautious about that. So when you're having a shower, you think, okay, well, I can just use all the water, and then you realize, oh shit, the next morning I can't even brush my teeth or do anything because all the water is gone.
Right.
Our tanks are not see-through, so we have to be cautious of that.
Right.
It's important, because if we can't get to a Whole Foods or a Walmart to refill our tanks, we're screwed and we have no water. Let's just say that we are stranded.
Right.
So we have to be the water is a big thing.
Right.
Another thing would be the solar panels. If you don't have electricity, or if you don't have, because our solar panels make everything run in here. This is an older van, so we have to connect, when we do have a fridge, we have to connect our fridge to the solar panel. So the panels themselves are just panels, but then you have the Goal Zero, like I'll call it the outlet box,
right,
which is what you charge everything in. So that is connected to the solar panel, and then a percentage comes up so you could see how much that box is charged. And so I think it would be the electricity and the battery and everything, all your batteries for all of your devices, and the water. That's a really big thing that people don't know about.
What about safety?
Okay, so we again, they're amazing apps for that. So given the circumstances that we're in right now, with all the rioting and stuff that was happening, I'll give you an example. We were like, well, what are we going to do? We're about to go into van life. So where is the best place to go? Right. Because we're Black, and I'm not trying to get racial, I'm just speaking the facts. We really had to look at all of the states that were, well, starting with red and blue, right, and then looking at where all the riots were and so forth versus where they weren't, and surprisingly, where you would think we would be at risk, we weren't, in places right, like the South and so forth. It was very interesting. So having some sort of geographical knowledge and doing research, using Google, using the internet and all of these things before going to the place is very, very important. Whether you're yellow, black, white, it doesn't matter. It's very, very important to do this research in general. But honestly, Leah, a lot of it is risk taking as well, because you don't know what you're driving into
until you get there.
You can read what you want, but these are very, very interesting and serious times as well, so you just don't know. Right. And because we are risk takers, and because we really sincerely do believe in spirit, we are protected. And if something happens, God forbid, but it is what it is. There's only so much that we can prepare for. Right. But I think the majority of it would be the research and so forth before right, going to the location.
And then in general, I mean, outside of this time, in general, safety, like you don't encounter like nefarious characters, are attracted to van life. Is that a thing? Or
I feel like van life is it's known so much more than people think. The community is actually very, very big. In a place like California or the West Coast, you're camouflaged, you're good to go, you have no problems. If you go to a place like New York City and you have an RV in the middle of Times Square, then obviously people think that you're a tourist and you're in town or whatever the case may be. I use those those extreme examples just so you can understand it really depends on the energy of that state or country or whatever the case is, and if they're welcoming or not. So regardless of the time we're in or in general, do your research because it's good to know these things. And you'll be surprised. The place, like I said, the places that I thought I would have to protect myself, they were like, you know, so welcome, like come in, you know, and I was like, well, thanks. In the places like Oklahoma, like Tulsa, you wouldn't have thought that, but everyone was so nice. It was crazy. And then I come like closer to city life and everyone has an attitude and everything. I you know, we haven't experienced racism. We haven't experienced any sort of negative or unsafe, or I'm not feeling this vibe. Maybe like if we're going down a specific street, then that's one thing, but a whole town, no.
Your favorite thing about van life and the biggest myth about van life?
Honestly, only white people do it, or only a certain race do it, which made me, I'm a researcher, I love to learn, so I like to know these things myself, like okay, if that's the case, then let me do some research. I'm curious, what does that mean? And now granted, like yes, a lot of Caucasians do van life, yes, but it is obviously open to the public. We're all welcome. I welcome you guys into my life. And this is actually one of the reasons why we wanted to do van life, to show all races that it's possible. I think it's fear. I think it's misunderstanding. I think that van life is misunderstood. And it's only for a specific type. Van life indicates that you're a surfer and you just want to go in the water and come back and live the beach life. There's so much more to that. There are people that have 3 kids and 2 dogs and a parrot, and this is a real thing. There are people who just got married and they're singles doing it. It's amazing stories out there, guys, and you know, it's just a testament to, you really sincerely cannot judge a book by its cover. So that would be the biggest myth, that it's only for white people.
And so you're doing this with and both of you are in a partnership, and with everything that you've just described, you know, like how, well, it's a very intimate setting. There isn't anywhere to go. You're always with each other, and you have, it sounds like communication has to be a big part of the relationship in order to successfully live this life, to be safe, to be comfortable, and then just really to get the most out of it. So what brings 2 people together to do that, and what is important for you to have?
An unsaid or unknown connection. It's just there. The willingness to work things out, being solution oriented rather than continuing to talk about the problem. That's a big thing. And right before this, we were living in a studio, not much bigger than this, in Chicago. So like, you know, ironically, we downsized. Other people would have, you know, upgraded so that you do have more space to have your own space. But for us, that's another reason why we want to be on the West, so we could spend a lot of time outdoors. So another example of how our average day looks like, I like to do my work in the van. He likes to do his work in the park. So, and you know, we set our days up like a 9 to 5 type of thing. So that's the amount of time that we tend to have our own space. I personally love my space. I think it's very healthy, regardless of if you're in a partnership or a household with family. It's very important for every one of us to have our own space, and he does as well, so it works. The balance is there. So there are ways to be apart in a very small space, especially when you're in the West and you can afford to be outside and it doesn't get freezing cold and so forth. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is being solution oriented. I always say that to people.
Right. And do you think you need to be on the same are you guys on the same spiritual path?
Yes and no. And I say that because we're different individuals. He's himself and I myself. But the direction is the same direction. The goal and the mission is the same. So it helps, but to answer your question, it's not necessary. It just happens to be easier because you don't have to adapt or feel like you have to sacrifice or anything of that nature. And the unconditional love is there as well. I think that's another thing, and it takes a very specific amount of work to get to unconditional. I use the analogy of if someone, God forbid, did something really, really bad to harm a family member, can you say that you still love them? And I can. There's some things that Leah, there's some things that have happened and you know about those things, and I still love those people unconditionally. That takes a lot of strength and a lot of patience and growth and time to learn yourself and to unlearn in order to heal. And I think because we're both at that unconditional place, it makes it a lot easier to be in a small space like this.
I think so too, and it's beautiful to see and to witness. I met you in Barbados.
Yes.
Right? And I would have seen you around in my childhood, in my teens, for a while, I believe. And we are a very conservative society. You know, the way I live my life is considered very risky, in that I've lived in many different countries, which is something that we don't venture out like that, and we don't move around like that. And we live in very safe and conservative, predetermined ways. And your life is far more undetermined than even mine is. And that is not something that you pick up from home. That is not necessarily our collective mindset. So tell me about your particular journey and what you think in your life has caused you to always follow this. You want to define your identity, but then to choose this. When I say this path, I mean your life path.
Okay, so I guess to start with, I was born in Grenada, and I did spend a lot of time in Barbados. But between Barbados and Grenada, I was in Trinidad. My mom's Jamaican, so I moved back there. Then my stepdad was a diplomat, so for the American embassy, so wherever he went, we had to go. He was American, so I went to Panama, then back to Virginia. I was living in Falls Church, and then we went to Texas, and then we went to DC, and they got a divorce, and then my mom got a job offer in Florida, and I'm about 8 at this point. And then she got a job offer in Barbados. Because of the academic system being so much better than the States, she wanted me to just stay there. And so because of all the moving around, and I guess just because it was meant for me to know myself from at such a young age, I knew I was bisexual at the age of 5. I saw the love in girls and boys because I was a child the same way. I never understood why I had to choose. So I use that example to say that I think it starts with the fact that I knew myself from such a young age. Not only did I know myself, I was very comfortable with who I was. So that's where the independence and the integrity and the quite honestly the pride and that gave me freedom. To have that gave me the freedom that I needed and wanted. And so because I'm grateful to have a mother who has always pushed me to do and be who I want to be, rather than go to college, have kids, this, that, and the third, you know, I'm very grateful, was and am very grateful for that. And, you know, being able to someone would argue that traveling so much at such a young age is not good for the child and so forth. But again, because I matured so quickly, seeing all these different cultures, and being in Panama was very much like being in the Caribbean, because we're essentially the same people by culture. All of these different things, it was a beautiful thing to see myself outside of my body, just understand life, understand how people are personality wise, understand that I am from a place where they don't understand what it's like to love a man and to love a woman, far less convert to a woman from a man or a man to a woman. And it allowed me to, this is why I always like talk about freedom so much, because that's where it started.
Right. Because a lot of us know who we are. We are who we are from a child. Right. By the age of 8, we figure that out. Right. And then a lot of what happens to us is conditioning within society and so forth. So, and a lot of the issues that we develop are from our childhood, from our parenting, from something that society may have told us at some point in time. So what were some of the tenets of your relationship with your mom that allowed you to be this person?
My mom is gay. So that's a big thing. The fact that my mother is also, her father was Cuban, her mother was Panamanian, she was born in Jamaica, so she also is very cultured as well. Before I came along, she was living in Switzerland and Germany and the States and the Caribbean, all these different places, and traveled the world on top of that. So the idea of always being yourself and going to soar and to learn from other cultures has a lot to do with my journey. And I'm very grateful that before I came along, because I'm adopted, before I came along, that's why I say came along, and before she, as opposed to before she had me, she was the person that she was, and she always would be the person that she is, as much as she can or could be, given that she is a gay woman living in the Caribbean, or anything of that nature. She still was herself. So I use that as an example to say, regardless, she will and always has been herself. And that traveled down with me, and it just stuck with me.
And I wanna stick a pin here and really open up the conversation of identity, because, you know, going through life, everybody needs to connect to something. I am from this place. I am from that place. I am this race, you know. I speak these languages, etc. I am a lawyer. I am a model. I am a, right? And we put all these labels. You just described the everything, or a lot of what would cause many people to be confused with identity. To be, if I may say this, to be adopted, to be raised by a single gay mother in a society that is very, you know, in societies that aren't understanding of that, to have moved around, and to all these things, to have a perspective or a mindset that is different from what is standard, right? So for you, what does identity mean? And two, how were you able to reconcile these things within yourself to be able to have this identity?
Identity to me goes back to freedom. Everything goes back to freedom, because the freedom to mess up, the freedom to be confused, freedom does not necessarily mean all positive and soaring in the sun and all of these different things. It means I have the choice to mess up. I have the choice to be in excruciating pain and learn from it, or not. I have that choice. And so to me, having the choice is what identity is, because you have the choice to find out what your identity is. How did I get through, to put it in, to ask the question in my own words back to you, how did I get through all of the trials and the confusion, if any, and all of these different things? I think I would have to say that because I have a lot of opportunities, one of my strengths would be the consistency and just the idea. Again, it goes back to knowing myself at such a young age and just sticking with that regardless of what has been thrown at me. Being sexually abused, being raped, and still being able to heal, grow, and love that person unconditionally is what I mean by the self-work that comes, and the determination and the choice to know who I am after something like that has happened to me.
Right. You don't just wake up and know these things. You don't just wake up and have freedom. It's a process. Freedom comes after a process many times, right?
Yeah, of course.
So what was the point in your life where that coming home to self kind of happened, and how were you able to then reconcile these things, rape, adoption, all these things, all the, as you say, the trials? Like, how does that process actually start?
So to answer the first part of the question, it was in California, exactly where we're at, in 2018. I was, we come from the Caribbean. We start drinking very young and partying and all of that stuff. I just fell in love with alcohol.
Right.
And I essentially was a functioning alcoholic. I was bartending, I was modeling, I was doing all of these things in New York, hustling, working 80 hours a week. And then I moved to California, and I knew that there needed to be change. I knew that, but I didn't expect to wake up one morning, which was June 10th, and say, I will no longer drink alcohol. When someone says that and they have an addiction or a habit, they don't usually go through with it. They may relapse or whatever the case may be. It's very hard to stop something like that. But up till today, I have, and I'm very proud of myself. Between today and June 10th, 2018, yoga came to me. One day I picked up my mat and I just started doing yoga. I started really doing breathing. I started to really fact check myself, because I always say to people it's very important to check yourself and check in with yourself, and go down the list of things. How do all of my organs feel? I stopped drinking, so my kidneys are going to be great now, and my lungs, but apart from that, what else? It's the what else. It's the how, it's the why. All those questions came to me because I allowed them to.
I know you as a model.
Right.
I know you as a makeup artist.
Right.
As a businesswoman. So who was Jolene in her 20s?
Jolene, Joe, whoever. She was a social butterfly, someone that always wanted to help people, someone that worked herself too much in New York, really had a very specific vision in modeling. I need to get signed to a European agency because I know I'm petite, I know I'm shorter, I'm 5'8", and everyone in the industry in LA was telling me that I'm too editorial for me to get signed here. That my market is in Europe. The same thing happened in New York. And I was so determined to make it. I was so fixated on my modeling career and my makeup career, and that's why I got into the special effects program. And I was like, I went to MUD in Soho for that, and I was like, I'm going to do special effects makeup and I'm going to be a model. That was my focus. I was living the life. I was really social and partying and, living the best life, whatever that meant. And that was the gist of the 20s in New York City.
Who you are has always been very clear to me. right? And I have the benefit of saying this and reflecting on this because I've known you for all this time. And normally I don't know my guests that well to be able to say this, but you have always been this innate person, and you've always had this spirit. And so I think that who you are is always who you are. It's just how you choose to show up and the decisions that you make in your life. And obviously this enhances through your spiritual journey. You kind of adapt the presentation of self in this world, right? Just Chat with Joe is, I would say, is a spiritual practice before it's anything else.
Of course,
right?
That's exactly what it is.
And it's beautiful that all of it has come together now for you to present this version of self and to help people heal who they are. But before Just Chat with Joe, I want us to really go into why it came about. And I don't know if you wish to, but the event and the process of of spiritual growth, because that is what we're here for. That is what people are searching for. People are searching for the answers. It's not that they are completely lost as people, but there's another stage of where they're trying to get to. So for you, where did that start? I know you said 2018, but where and how did it actually start?
I actually was in Indiana with Om, and we were on the trails, we were walking, and we were talking about what the next move was going to be. Because we left California, unfortunate events happened, and I had to make a decision. Do I stay? Do I in the relationship, or do I stay in California? What to do? Because I have always been a free spirit, and just like whatever happens, I'll figure it out. California will always be here. New York will always be here. I'm going to choose to help my partner go through what he's going through. Just Chat with Joe was supposed to be what you do with Life and Lemonade originally. And so I knew that capturing stories is beautiful, but it's not my calling. And it came to a point where it was less of what I wanted to do and what my calling was. That's out of my control. What's in my control is if I'm going to accept that calling or not. So while we were walking, I was like, all right, let me think about it. I love Ellen. I love Just Chat with Joe. There were certain people that came to me. So how do I bring that together? So I decided I'm not going to ask that question anymore. I'm going to let that be. I meditated, I slept, and then it came to me. Just chat with Joe, like chat with me, but on a more deeper level. So that's when I decided to take yoga seriously and get certified for my whole practice, everything that I offer, and really help people go through what they're going through and find a solution. This is why I say I'm not a therapist. What I am here to do is to sit in the passenger seat while you guys sit in the driver's seat and make sure that you just stay on the road. That's the analogy that I give. Because for me to say that I'm sitting in the passenger seat and having a practice indicates that I'm not here to give you the answers. I'm here to guide you through what you're going through so you can find the answers. So that's what Just Chat with Joe is all about. Heal with Joe, yoga with Joe, whatever the case may be, is with me, as opposed to you're talking at me, I'm talking at you. I'm helping you go through what you're going through in order to get to the finish line.
Who is Joe, and what is her calling, and what is your place in this kingdom?
Or queendom.
Or queendom.
I am an ear. I am an eye. I am a listener. I am here to see things that people can't, and that people can, but I see them before in order to give you the warning. There are things I have abilities that I don't talk about because I'm not here to promote on Instagram the fact that I'm a psychic. I'm not here to promote on Instagram or social media or anyone that I can do this, look at me, book me. That's not, I take this very seriously, and I proceed with caution. Because for you to really do the self-work that you need to do, and I'm no different, Leah. What I'm doing, you can do as well. It's just a matter of this being my purpose. So I take these things very seriously because it's a gift that you're letting me in. So I take that seriously rather than what I have to give to you or what I have to offer. It has nothing to do with me, actually. It has everything to do with you.
What are some of the things that being in the driver's seat with you being in the passenger seat, what are some of the things that you can advise them or guide them towards?
You need to heal your past first. That's the first step. You have to heal and deal with what you haven't dealt with in order to even go forward in anything to the fullest capacity of what going forward in a positive way means. That's the very, very first step. There are a lot of things that we put under the rug and behind us that we think, all right, I'll deal with it in 5 years. My mom told me I was adopted at the age of 25. I decided to turn that into a positive, tell her how grateful I am for both my biological mother and her. And
B came to visit. B came to visit.
Oh, hey, what's going on? And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. That's a perfect example with healing in the moment. I didn't understand why she waited to tell me while I was an adult, as opposed to telling me when I'm a child. Was a child. So she actually told me that when I was on my way to work, and I made sure to message her every hour to make sure that she knew that I'm not freaking out. I'm not in shock. I am coming home and we'll talk about this. That's just an example of healing from something that is life-changing. I always choose gratitude. I always choose gratitude because I'm at that unconditional place. So I can afford to do that coming from a place of unconditional love. And I am very grateful. I put myself in her shoes. I'm an empath. So that made me, and I say that because that's who I was, but you don't need to be an empath and all of these things to choose, because again, this goes back to identity, how to receive this information. I chose to heal from it rather than aggression or anger. And thus I was able to move forward with the next thing.
So you said you would advise them to heal their past.
Yes, that's the first thing.
And what is the second thing? What else would you advise of them?
Patience is a very big thing. There's a lot that comes on your journey that will either throw you off or make you confused, and then it comes a point where you're like, I really don't need to deal with this, or I don't want to, so I'm not going to. But there is a gift of just getting through. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, for a lack of a better word. I know that's played out, I get it, guys, but it's the truth. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Every tunnel. And the thing is, it's not going to happen in the time that you set out for yourself, because we put a lot of timelines on things in this life. I'm going to get married at 30. I'm going to have kids at, this age and so forth. But there's a lot more beauty that's within the unknown, which is why I chose this life. Because I value my time and I'd like to spend it well. And I always encourage others to really value your time, value yourself, and know that you are worth it and that you deserve to know who you are and what is your identity. Because once you know that, you have all the space and time in the world to do what it is that you want and what you were destined to do as well. So the patience is a big part of it as well.
Do you have any blockages inside of you? Because the spiritual journey, you never quite arrive. It's always going to be
consistent.
It's something you have to keep at. It's a lifestyle, really, and a way of being. So do you have any blockages, and if so, how do you process that?
So blockages for me happen on day-to-day basis. That's what I refer to as a blockage. So we live in a very old vehicle. This is a 1993. Leah, we have spent so much money on, because the person that we bought it from was not truthful, and thus we found out that there needed to be a lot more work that needed to be done. That is a blockage in itself, because then it puts me in a financial situation regardless of me being who I am.
Right.
This is happening in the instance and I'm human.
Right.
So that is a blockage, because now I have to create ways in my mind financially as to how I'm going to deal with this mechanical problem. Because we live in our home, and that's a big thing.
Right.
To have a mechanical problem. So that in itself is a blockage. How do I deal with that? I stop what I'm doing. I breathe. And as I'm breathing, I inhale, control what I can control. And I exhale, I release everything. I release all the fear, all the doubt, all the worries. Because I can only control what I can. The rest is up to spirit, up to God, up to Allah, whoever you all believe in and look up to. There is nothing more than I can do than do what I can do.
Control what you can and leave the rest.
Right. So that's an example of a day-to-day blockage in the circumstances that we're in right now, learning freedom, because we're still learning her. We have adopted a child, basically. That's how I see it.
You believe in God, Allah? Do you believe?
I believe that there is hope, there is love. That's why I stopped at there is. I believe in, this is why I say I'm spiritual, not religious. I don't like to put titles on things. So I believe the same way that you believe in. It's the same destination, we just go about it the different ways. That's what I like to say.
Okay.
I believe in the higher being. I believe that we are all God, and we look up to our higher selves. That's how I got where I am. I believe in spirit. I believe in self. So I believe. I believe, just like you do. It just may be different ways of getting to the horizon.
When we both come to these spaces, because we're hoping that humanity can tap into some level of unconditionality and then therefore safety, which is why Life and Lemonade shares all types of stories. Because it's the idea that you're not alone. Wherever you you are not alone, and there's possibility out there, and there's allowance out there in terms of you own the right to take up space in this world, and you don't have to shy away from that. But a lot of people don't have that in their day-to-day life.
No.
And so I love that you say that, because you need a safe space to share anything, to share everything.
Absolutely anything. Anything and everything.
Because until you really explore, and each of us has something different inside of us, right? And therefore we bear different fruit. But in order to know your fruit, you have to know what's inside of you.
Exactly.
And you have been able to get out all of that. You've been able to explore the fullness of who you are and understand that, and now shape a life around that. And I think that's beautiful, because a lot of people don't have that opportunity. A lot of people don't grow up with a mother as open as, as open-minded as you have, and stuff like that. So for you to be able to offer that back to people, I think,
because it's not about me. I always say that it's not about me, it's about you guys. It's about you knowing that you've been searching for something for so long, an outlet that you just couldn't have in your own family or in your own friend circle or whatever the case is. Your strangers are your biggest support, believe it or not. It's a real thing. And also we're a reflection of each other, so we can learn from each other rather than you being the person learning from me. Now granted, the goal is to help you heal, so I'm here to help you heal, but the journey is letting you know that you do have that outlet, and that we're here to go through it together first before we can get to the healing, because you have to deal with whatever it is first.
So then what do you want them to know about yoga?
I want you guys to know that the union between mind, body, and breath is really important, and I'm here to help you connect them. That's the biggest thing with yoga, whether I help you or not. So you know, for your knowledge, the mind, body, and breath is the union, and that's what yoga is.
And is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would want to share?
I think we touched on a bit of everything. The most important part is I pray that you guys, after hearing a little bit about my story, you know it's okay to be vulnerable, because these are some vulnerable times as well. It is entirely okay, and it is allowed for you to be exactly who you are. And if you can't do that, the plus is that I am here to help you be that person. That's what I would like everyone to know.
That's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you, Leah. Thank you. Satnam, namaste.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
She's beautiful, guys.
Gratitude.
Thank you guys for watching. I see the sun is beautifully out.
Yes.
In Malibu today.
Yes. You
I
guys
think-
are here in spirit, so
Yes, you are. It's beautiful.
giving you that positive energy.
I hope that whatever you take away from this episode, that it gives you permission. I think that's really what I would like you to take away. It gives you permission to be yourself, to explore yourself, to journey within, to connect to spirit, and just essentially for yourself determine what is important. And it doesn't have to look like my life. It doesn't have to look like Joe's life. It doesn't have to look like your mom's life, your sister's life. It's just for you to determine what is important and use the inspiration of Joe being herself, of me being myself, to really find out who you are. I think that's the most important thing in life.
I agree.
So I wrap this up. I send you love, light, and possibility. Have a beautiful, beautiful journey wherever you are.
Love all of you.
Bye.
Bye.
Da 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 da.